Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we have a very interesting video for you guys. We are going to be doing Bridge the Beliefs, which is looking at a religion from another lens than maybe you probably did, right? We are in a Western society with Western beliefs, material objects and stuff, but let's look at, say, the LDS Church through the lens of Tibetan Buddhism or Stoicism, which is literature that I'm very familiar with and a theology that I'm very familiar with. So let's talk about it. Judgment versus journey. The LDS Church believes that there is a huge test, right? I mean, we were all these souls that saw this unpredictable world, chaotic, unpredictable world, but we decided to enter it in the hopes of becoming like God and becoming like our Father, right? And therefore, we basically consented to suffering, and we consented to all of the things that we're going to experience here. And all the choices we make from that, we will be judged on a final judgment day, the day of our death. As far as Tibetan belief goes, there really is nothing even remotely like that. I mean, there is no deity. There is no... Well, the deity is everything, right? But there is no judgment. There's no judge. No judge at all. No judge. There's only cause and effect. So what I do causes... Or what I cause affects other people in various different ways. Suffering versus relief. That's a very big thing you'll hear in Tibetan literature, is that really all our morals are, as far as Tibetan literature goes, is how much suffering do we cause? How much relief do we cause? And if we have the ability to make choices and change things around us, why are we choosing to cause suffering? I find this to be a strictly theological and like thought out way sort of thinking about it, rather than believing in a deity or an all powerful God or multiple rules. So this is much more fluid in the way that, like for example, in the LDS Church, homosexuality is the same as adultery. There would be no such comparison in Buddhism between anything. No, not even the same murder could be compared to a murder, right? Or anything like that. There is no laws like that. The only thing is that exact situation, everything that happened to a T, right, versus how much suffering it cost. So if I choose to murder somebody, there isn't an all-knowing God that is stopping me from doing that or telling me that I'll go to hell because I did that. Instead, what is the harm and basically the effect on me is that I cause so many people to suffer, which, by the way, there is a built-in system to help us feel a certain way when we cause people to suffer. It's called guilt. This is not to say that guilt is something that we should hyper-focus on, but it is a very clearly there for a reason. We're social creatures with emotions that are supposed to lead us to certain decisions, and guilt is clearly one that makes us feel a certain way for causing harm or suffering towards another individual. I find this to be a very interesting thing, especially when they talk about worldly systems. I mean, there's those systems within our own brain, and obviously these change based on where we live. So it makes a lot more sense to have it fluid and as a system rather than we're a product of a god, in my personal opinion, of course. Exclusivity of truth. I find this one to be extraordinarily fascinating, especially from where I believe, because in my belief, there is no specific literature. There is no specific way of thinking, right? Instead, there is only literature and ways of thinking, and we must develop our own journey based on what we find and what we read and what we think about, right? The exclusivity of church, basically, the LDS Church claims that they are the one true church with the only authority to practice church. I mean, the famous line that every other church is playing church, but we have the authority to actually do it. I find that very interesting, especially that's very anti-Eastern, right? Where there are thousands of paths that pretty much all lead to the same journey, right? Which is self-improvement, enlightenment, loving our neighbors, and regular Christians believe in bringing the kingdom of heaven to earth. That's their goal. And I find that much more in line with Tibetan Buddhism than the LDS belief, which is, it doesn't seem like they're really trying to bring heaven to earth, at least as far as I've read. Again, I don't want this to be like this is 100% LDS with the LDS belief, because I really don't know. I grew up in the LDS Church. I find their beliefs super fucking fascinating, but I really don't know a whole lot other than what I tell you, right? So attachment. So let's keep talking about the one true church, actually, because saying that one path, right, is the only way of leading to salvation or becoming one of these kings or queens or heavenly rulers. I find that very interesting because it's very anti not only Buddhism, but so many other beliefs, which is that there's never going to be one path. And if you claim one path, then that is kind of like it's a way of seeing ignorance. I don't want to sit here and say that the church is ignorant, because they're not, but it's a way of like showing that you don't have any other perspectives. You don't have multiple perspectives and opinions brewing within you. You are just on one line, which I find very interesting. And I really like to talk to these individuals and learn why that is, because it's not, again, to crap on them or tell them that they're less or whatever. That's not that at all. That is, you have a totally different journey and belief than me. And I find that fascinating. And I want to build that literature so that way I can build my belief. Because my belief doesn't prevent me from reading certain literature or exploring certain ideas, right? I can explore yours with the openness and fullness of my heart, and I would still be a Buddhist. So yeah, I find the exclusivity of truth very interesting. Attachment versus eternity. The LDS Church's main selling point is eternal marriage, eternal family, and that becoming kings, queens, and rulers of heaven, right? Or worlds, kings, queens, and rulers of worlds, right? So that would be the plan of salvation. As far as Tibetan belief goes, there is no attachment to family or loved ones. There is no liberation when it comes to like, oh, I'll be with my family forever. So I guess this is my question for you guys. Does eternal attachment bring you joy or prolonged suffering? If you are to believe that you will be with your family forever if you follow certain rules and if they follow certain rules, does that bring you more joy or more suffering? Because from my perspective, I don't have the belief that I'll see my mom in heaven or my grandma, but that's not really a scary feeling for me, because I'm aware that we are all part of this beautiful system. And that's really all we are, right? Is that this is one big, beautiful system, and that I could have been families with anybody or loved everybody because we're all a part of this big, beautiful system, right? So it's very interesting. It's more in line with the fact that if I, like my boyfriend, I love the fuck out of him. There's so many feelings in my heart, right, that I want to be with him forever. But the reality is, he is here forever because he's part of this giant system that is absolutely forever changing and ever morphing, and as well as I don't think it can be destroyed, at least as far as my knowledge, right? So we are endlessly going through this system and cycle, and he is a part of that, and I am a part of that. And there would be pieces of me in everybody and pieces of him in everybody. We are all just unique individual pieces of stars, effectively. Stars, I know, being a term for angel in the Bible, don't worry. So the role of suffering, let's talk about that. The role of suffering in the LDS Church is a test for spiritual growth, right? So like I said, Heavenly Father wants us to become like him, just like you would want your son to become like you, but you know that he has to cross this unpredictable, chaotic world to get there or to grow like that, right? So I guess that's the LDS belief, is that we were these souls with pretty much infinite increase. Well, not infinite increase yet. I don't really know. All I know is that we were these souls in heavens, and we chose to become like God. So that's why we decided to come to earth and learn and grow and suffer, right? I find that to still be a beautiful way of thinking. It's still like this idea that suffering is growth and beautiful, and although it's hard and so awful sometimes, like that is really the way we become good people. But that is absolutely not how Tibetans believe it. I mean, as far as Tibetans go, suffering is a universal condition to understand and transcend, right? So like, instead of me hoping for heaven where all my suffering is lifted off of me, right? Instead, we're trying to understand that, and by understanding that, hopefully transcend it. Hopefully see something more important than suffering, right? And I find that to be an extraordinarily beautiful way of looking at it. I mean, if suffering is a universal condition that everybody goes through, and it's just a part of this system, then the only answer is to try to understand and transcend that system. My big question is, if suffering is something given to us or something we create and can or is it something that we create or can transform? I think that even in Christian theology and stuff, like, this is a very idea that suffering is something that we somewhat create, right, on our own via our own decisions. But you guys don't necessarily believe that suffering is just a condition, right? It seems very trial test based. So I think that this was super interesting stuff. Now, these are only 5 of 10 questions that I had planned today, but I do not have time to make a 20-minute video. And I don't think you guys want 20-minute videos. I think they're better doing 2 10-minutes. I absolutely love Tibetan theology and LDS theology. I find them both super, super interesting. Let me know in the comments below what you think, especially if you're LDS. Please let me know more about your theology, because honestly, I'm kind of coming at this from an ignorant perspective, right? I only know what I learned through my LDS church. I don't know the entirety of LDS theology, right? So anyway, I think this was a super interesting video. I love you all. Thank you so much for watching. Just let me know what you think about those questions down below. And yeah, I love you. Have an amazing rest of your day. I will see you later.